Safety Forum held on the 7th of May 2024. I can see that we have present Councillors Anderson, Barker and Cowie. Councillor Dewar? I am seeing you present, Councillor Dewar. I have apologies from Councillor Johnson Dempsey, and I can see that Councillor Toner has joined as a substitute. Also present today are Councillors Kerr and Mars. I have apologies for Councillor McCreary, and I'm just going to check and see if we have a substitute. I'm not seeing any. Also present today are Councillors McLachlan and Ray. We have a number of officers in attendance today, and with that I'll pass you back to the Chair to commence today's business. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth Ann. First item on the agenda, is there any declarations of interest? No hands raised. Thank you very much. Item 2 on the agenda is the minutes of the previous meeting. That's pages 3 to 8. I'm going to move that as a correct record. Well, actually, I take that back. I can't approve it as a correct record because I wasn't present.
I'll move that as a correct record.
Would somebody else like to second that? Thank you very much. Is there any questions or comments on the minute? Councillor Mars. Julia?
Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Thank you. Brilliant. Item 2 on the minutes, the school travel initiatives. The forum decided in consultation with the Chair a decision to be made around the appropriateness of considering the West of Scotland road safety guidance at the next meeting. Given the importance of this underlying guidance to much of the remit of the forum and in relation to school transport relevant to the item 2 of the previous meeting, of which this matter was raised on, could you outline the reasons for refusing this decision, stroke discussion, given it would be in line with Scottish Government guidance from 2021 supporting the UK legislation, the Education Act 1980 detailing maximum walking distances, but also noting that local authorities can go further than those maximum walking distances, taking into consideration such matters of geography, footpaths, built-up areas and street lighting, and that this guidance should be kept under review.
I'm assuming you're asking that question in relation to the response that I sent to you when you requested it be heard at this meeting. So I discussed it with officials, as I said in the email, and it was deemed that the current document is sufficient for what we're doing at the moment. If it was deemed necessary to be brought forward or updated, officials would have done that. But I'm going to ask Colin Park if he'd like to comment on that.
Thanks, Chair. I think just kind of probably referring back to a discussion, Councillor Mars, at the last Road Safety Forum, and obviously since then I had a kind of conversation with Councillor McLachlan. There's no evidence and there's no reason that I can see, or certainly having discussions with my team as well, that the guidance needs to be updated or reviewed. We know there's obviously a kind of discussion ongoing about changes to the distances children will be eligible for transport, and we want to make sure that we continue to implement a consistent approach that we've done over the last several years, a number of years, and not change the guidance because perhaps difficult decisions are going to have to be made. So, Chair, just from our discussion and as I relayed at the last Road Safety Forum, consistency is key, and I don't see at this moment in time a need to change the guidance, and even if there was a need for a change, it's not necessarily something that we would do ourselves. It would be a wider discussion with the west of Scotland, and there's not an appetite to do that at this time. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Colin. And the pertinent point there is consistency is key. So, Julia, are you okay with that, or did you want to come back?
Thank you, Chair. Given the guidance from 2021, which supports the Education Act 1980, the UK legislation in which the school travel walking distances are based, what criteria would you think is reasonable for a review and a discussion of the West of Scotland road safety guidance to take place? Or are we suggesting that any difficult decisions, that you have that discussion after that? And in fact, it would seem a wee bit cart before the horse to not consider the guidance in light of proposed very, very serious and very difficult decisions coming up?
So the first part of your question, what circumstances would I deem it appropriate? Well, anyone can make that request as you have done, but I'm not here to fight your corner for you. I don't see that it's necessary to raise it at all. If it was necessary to be raised, officials would bring it before us. You've asked the question, the answer's been given back to you, and I'm sorry that there's been declined at this time. So I'm not going to get into a debate about what criteria I think would be relevant to bring it forward or to review it again.
I'll leave it at that then, Chair.
Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is item... Is there anyone else on that? We okay with that? Next item on the agenda is item 3, and it's roads accident statistics. And I'm going to ask Stuart Laird to take us through that. It's pages 9 to 30.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to inform the Forum of the provisional number of fatal, serious and slight casualties resulting from road accidents occurring within the council area over the last calendar year. Section 3 sets out the background, making reference to the Scottish Government's road safety framework through to 2030. Paragraph 3.2 refers to strategic outcomes for road safety, built around a safe systems approach, coupled with performance management systems to monitor progress. Paragraph 3.4 notes that casualty reduction targets are for Scotland as a whole and not specifically for individual local authorities. However, we will monitor locally to allow our progress and contribution to the national effort. Moving to slide 2. 4 headline targets are reported annually and can be found in Appendix A of the papers as well. And in addition to those figures, we've got slight injury casualties for additional background. Targets for reductions in people killed, seriously injured, children killed and children seriously injured and killed are shown here. Paragraph 3.5 of the papers notes national interim targets for specific user groups and ages, and these have also been set. Targets for a reduction in pedestrians, cyclists, motorcyclists and specific old and young road users killed and seriously injured are shown. Just actually to go back a slide. And another. Keep going. Next one. There we go. In addition to that, causation factors relating to these are also investigated, and this information is detailed within appendices C through to J of the papers. Paragraph 3.7 notes that these figures are provisional only at this moment in time, and these will be confirmed later in the year. Moving to section 4 of the paper, the statistics for all fatal, serious and slight casualties, including child, fatal and serious casualties within South Lanarkshire are detailed in the tables, and we'll come on to these in 2 seconds. These are given as the figures for the calendar years through from 2014 through to 2023, and this shows context. There are also details of the 5-year baseline figures upon which targets for casualty reductions are based, and also 2030 targets in relation to South Lanarkshire. A graph of overall yearly casualty figures are also provided, shown from 2005 through to 2023 to provide overall context, and those are shown in Appendix B of the papers. Moving to slide 3. There we go. Paragraph 4.3 in the papers outlines fatal casualties. As you can see, fatal casualty numbers have been fairly erratic and have failed to follow any specific trend within recent years. The year-end total for 2023 was 7, and this was a decrease of 3 when compared to the previous year. This involved 5 pedestrians, 4 of which being older road users, and 2 were vehicle drivers. There are also no significant common causation factors, circumstances, time or days of the week recorded. This is below the 5-year average baseline figure, and it's slightly over the 2023 target. Looking to the bottom of this particular slide, and referring to paragraph 4.5 of the papers, this considers serious casualties. The year-end total for 2023 was 125, and this was an increase of 41 when compared to the previous year. This is below the 5-year average baseline figure, and over the 2030 target. It's worth noting that car users account for 42% of these casualties, with pedestrians accounting for 30%, powered two-wheelers 14%, and cyclists 7%. Of these, approximately 49% occurred within a recorded speed limit of 30 mph or under. Moving on to the next slide. This looks at child fatalities, and in paragraph 4.7 of the papers it's noted that there have not been any, and this is for the 5th year in a row. Staying on slide 4, in paragraph 4.8, this relates to child serious casualties. The number of serious child casualties recorded for 2023 was 23, and this was an increase from 19 when compared to the previous year, which only had 4. This is over the 5-year baseline target, and over the 2030 target as well. Of the 23, 15 comprised of pedestrians, 6 vehicle passengers, 1 was a motorbike rider and 1 was a cyclist. 10 of the 15 pedestrian collisions included causation factors failed to look properly. This category is generally observed to fluctuate from year to year, noting that 2023 experienced a very low figure. Moving on to the next slide. This is in terms of slight casualties, and again referring to paragraph 4.10 of the papers. There was 238 casualties recorded in 2023. This was an increase of 48 when compared to the previous year. Again, noting that the 2022 figure was the second lowest value recorded within South Lanarkshire. Moving on to the next slide. This shows all casualties, and referring to paragraph 4.11 of the papers, this shows that there was 370 casualties during 2023. This was an increase of 86 when compared to the previous year. 2022 experienced the second lowest number of casualties, with only 2021 recording the lowest figure. This year's figure returns closer to the pre-2020 levels, with recorded of approximately 400 casualties. It should also be noted that, that approximately 22% of our annual casualties occur on the trunk road network. Final point of note is that COVID-19 restrictions affected travel over recent years, and increasing numbers of those using the road network has seen the statistics show an increase in casualties. Section 5 of the papers presents some discussion. Paragraph 5.1 refers to the Road Traffic Act 1988, and this requires all local authorities to carry out studies into the cause of accidents on our roads, and to take appropriate measures to prevent accidents from occurring. Since its formation, the Council has been proactive in reducing casualties on the road network, as you can see from the screen. However, much work still requires to be done to improve this further, in line with this, the framework's aspirations. Through the efforts of the Council, and by working in partnership with other bodies such as SPT, NHS, Police Scotland and Scottish Fire and Rescue, we aim to have fewer people injured. Paragraph 5.2 to 5.5 identifies the need to address a wide variety of issues and factors which contribute to casualty rates. There are various disciplines which contribute to this, and we refer to the 4 E's of education, engineering, enforcement and encouragement. Paragraph 5.6 lists 4 common causation factors in all our accidents, and these relate to driver and rider error. These relate to failing to look properly, careless and reckless, failed to judge other person's path and speed, and loss of control. The forum will recall from our previous meeting that we have listed initiatives and actions associated with the priority of road users and user groups, and we will be prioritising and progressing these in relation to these common factors. Looking to paragraph 5.8, in addition to road safety education, training and publicity, the Council introduced various engineering measures at sites identified during our casualty reduction programme to combat these particular causation factors as well. In addition, we look to provide new warning signage, new road markings, high friction surfacing, speed reduction measures, as well as reducing speed limits where they are appropriate. Please note that there are no employee issues or no implications to climate change, etc. with respect to this paper, and it doesn't include any new policy, function or strategy. I would point out that where works and initiatives are to be taken forward, they'll be prioritised through funding from Scottish Government Cycling Along Safer Routes funding stream, and also their Road Safety Improvement Fund, as well as the Council's annual roads investment plan. It should be noted that this year there is no funding presently available from SPT for road safety interventions. And finally, the forum is asked to note the contents of this report.
Thank you very much, Stuart. Lengthy report there, but you know, in summary, I think it's relatively positive. You look at 4.11 total casualties; it's a continual drop, excluding the COVID part which you mentioned, where it peaked slightly after. But where it peaked, it's still on that downward trend. So that's quite positive from that point of view. Is there anyone else got any questions or comments? John Anderson. Yeah.
Thanks, Chair. Just worrying about some of the reasons for these accidents, mainly all down to poor driving. I think we'd all agree. But there's a couple of things that's actually mentioned in agenda item 5, and one is a 20 mile per hour campaign. And it says if you hit someone at 30 miles per hour, they are 7 times more likely to die than at 20 miles per hour. And it says speed limits will be reduced on all appropriate roads. Now, I know this is the report for the Scottish and Fire Service. I don't know if there's anybody online that will talk. But how near are we to implementing that within South Lanarkshire? And what impact could that have on reducing some of the casualties? The other one, also mentioned here, is the pavement parking campaign, and it says forcing people from the pavement onto the road increases the risk of accidents. So again, how close are we to implementing the ban on parking on the pavements? And again, would that help reduce the statistics of accidents within South Lanarkshire? Thanks.
Can I touch on the 20 mile an hour one? How close are we in South Lanarkshire? Well, as you're aware, we've had quite a discussion of that at previous meetings, and I've got my own doubts about how effective the 20 mile an hour speed limit is. It depends where you implement it. Just over the weekend, I was travelling through Fife, and there was lots and lots of roads where it had a 20 limit, and it just seemed it wasn't appropriate to have them there. And that's kind of backed up with the fact that in Wales, they've reverted back a lot of the roads back to being the normal speed limits instead of 20, not only in Wales, but recently in Mid-Lothian. I think it was one of the Lothians where they had sort of introduced it to 20 in a broader way than we've got here, and then reneged on that and come back on that. I think it's really important that 20 mile an hour speed limits are in place at specific locations, and they are, and I'm sure they work. But the blanket, I don't know if you're meaning that, John, about the blanket approach that we had previously discussed. I'm certainly not in favour of that. I'm in favour where it's appropriate, but that's my opinion. I'm going to ask one of the officials. Stuart Laird is waiting to speak, so Stuart can respond to that from an official. Yeah, sure.
Just to clarify, I don't mean a blanket ban. I agree with Wales. Wales got it right, and I said at our last meeting, whatever we do, we need to get it right, and it is for appropriate roads. I'm not calling on a complete ban right across. I don't think that's appropriate, but it is in certain places, and it will help. Thanks.
And you'll know your previous experience, John, that you'll have been involved where 20 mile an hour speed limits have been put in place, and that's fine. There's good reasons why these have been implemented in these locations, but I'm going to ask Stuart to respond to that.
Thank you, Chair. You'll be aware from previous discussions at the forum that my consultant had provided a report to us based on the Transport Scotland's guidance. We're currently working our way through that, and I would hope that we'll come to a conclusion on that soon, and that will form the basis of a paper that will be presented to a future forum. It's worth noting that Glasgow City Council just last week have announced that they're intending to bring forward their proposals for 20 mile per hour speed limits. And again, with our border working with Glasgow, then they will review what work that they've been doing as well. So we do have officers currently working on that at the moment. And as I said, we'll present that to a future meeting, and we'll include quite a lot of statistical evidence to back up what we're intending to do as well, just to give you the comfort that we would expect there to be a casualty reduction, and what that is, then we're looking at what's been implemented elsewhere and what the impacts of that have been. I think Colin was going to mention the pavement parking.
Yeah.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Stuart. Councillor, just to kind of pick up on the last point there as well, I think the key thing here is we will be moving forward with appropriate roads, and it wouldn't be that blanket approach which was talked about, and as Councillor McLachlan says, was subject to quite lengthy debate over the last couple of forums. It will be interesting to see just how Glasgow progress with their proposals, noting that they do need to go through a kind of full process to promote a reduced speed limit as well. So that's where I think we'll start to tease out maybe some of the kind of wider feeling on it, positive and negative. So we'll watch with a bit of an interest how successful that goes. In terms of the pavement parking campaign, I note the comment in the fire and rescues paper, which will be delivered shortly. We took a paper, you'll maybe recollect, to Community and Enterprise towards the end of last year. We're not there yet. There's hardly any local authorities in Scotland are there yet in terms of doing enforcement per se. I'm not I wouldn't share some of the views that are expressed in there about forcing people onto the pavement increases the risk of accidents. If there are any issues with people being involved in accidents on the carriageway, have been forced off the footway, that kind of would have came out from some of our analysis. In terms of where we are, though, we are not there yet in terms of being able to enforce it. Just in terms of the resources that are available. I'm hoping to bring a paper to Community and Enterprise in June, I think June the 17th or 18th, just to give committee an update on what we're doing, but it will continue to be a level of kind of soft enforcement, encouraging people not to park in footways, perhaps towards kind of back end of the summer. We'll maybe be able to do more rigid enforcement. Thank you.
I think it's a bit of a be careful what you wish for situation with the pavement parking, because whilst I recognise that it can be very difficult for people with wheelchairs, pushing prams, etc., where they've actually got to go into the road to go past. So I don't condone parking in the pavement. I think it's wrong. But I know there's a lot of places where if you don't have parking, for example, there's lots of residential areas where there's parking in the pavement on both sides of the road. If these vehicles are forced to park on the road, there just isn't going to be enough room. But that's a problem for the car owners. If it's a road safety issue and it's deemed to be appropriate to implement it, then I would support it. But it's as Colin said, it could be a tricky one to implement. I would imagine there's going to be quite a bit of backlash because a lot of people just don't have places to park their cars. So that's my view. I'm just offering my view there. John, are you satisfied with the response from Colin and Stuart?
Yeah, I'm quite satisfied, but just again, what you're saying there about people on wheelchairs and whatnot having to bump onto the road, some of them can't. The cars are parked there and they can't get down off it because they're blocking where the pavement has been dipped to allow them to access the other side of the road. So I think it is important. I know you're saying it won't be, again, it'll be appropriate roads. It won't be every road that we can do it or every pavement we can do it on. But I think some people are just using it for convenience rather than necessary. Thanks.
I mean, you're right, you're absolutely right. My comment about people having to go onto the road, where they can, where there's a lower curb, but if it's a high curb, then they can't, they're going to fall off their wheelchair and so on. I actually dealt with a constituent where he was fortunate enough to get a place where he could get down onto he sent me a photograph of the vehicle and he could get down onto the road, but the problem, he's going out onto the main road to get past the parked car, and that creates a lot of danger for that user. The parking on the pavements, I'm going to mention this, and it's not what you've asked, but parking on the pavements where there's yellow lines associated in that area, it used to be, I think, Stuart will correct me, but you would park fully on the pavement, which you're not really meant to do. But where there's a double yellow line, you wouldn't get a parking ticket, but I believe now that you can issue a ticket, even if they're not on the road, if they're parked fully on the pavement, 4 wheels on the pavement, where there is a double yellow line. Stuart, can you clarify that? I'm pretty sure that's the case. Colin?
Yes, Chair, so that was from an earlier point I was going to make, but I'll answer that point. Yeah, I'm fairly certain our kind of TROs do allow us to book someone if they're parked on the footpath under the weight and loading restriction. Obviously, if they're parked on the footpath and we start implementing the pavement parking legislation as well, there's obviously an opportunity to kind of issue fixed penalties for that as well. Chair, if it's okay, just to kind of pick up on Councillor Anderson's point there as well, you know, this is going to be a very sensitive issue for us to deal with. You can argue with the principles of the pavement parking bill. It's sound for the points that Councillor McLachlan's made there as well, but it's just finding that balance to make sure we are taking action where there's issues that, again, Councillor McLachlan's identified there with drop curves being blocked, but we don't go in with a sledgehammer and cause chaos in kind of residential estates, where a lot of these estates have maybe found a bit of a balance, a bit of an equilibrium in terms of, you know, who lives where, who's got parking, where somebody parks, where they don't park. The estates may be balanced, but if that's causing problems to people getting around the estate and using wheelchairs or people with push chairs or whatever, we need to go in and have a balanced approach. So I do not, and I wouldn't be advocating when we bring the paper to community enterprise in June that we go in and blitz everywhere where there could be problems. I think it's going to have to be more of a reactive basis, and we're already seeing that coming through from a whole range of areas across South Lanarkshire, coming in from members of the public, coming in from elected members, coming in from MSPs as well. And at this moment in time, we're just noting where they are, and when we do come for a rollout, we'll target that on a reactive basis and just see where that takes us. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Colin. Anyone else? Okay. So agree to that recommendation? Sorry, beg your pardon. Ralph, Councillor Barker.
Just make my, if that's okay, just make my usual comment that, I mean, across the country, speed limits are set in the knowledge that there's minimal enforcement, and I do hope that we don't get into the idea of setting very low speed limits purely on the basis, well, if we set at 20, then they might stick to 30. But it's always a concern that speed limits are set and there's minimal enforcement, and that's obviously not just South Lanarkshire. Thanks.
Yeah, I agree with that. But there's an issue with police resources. I've discussed this at length with the divisional commander, and you know, the police resources are being hit, but more so the traffic division. It's almost running like a skeleton service. So I take your point. So I'll move the recommendation that the report be noted.
And I'll second it.
Thank you very much. Item 4 on the agenda is the Police Scotland Lanarkshire Division Road Safety Update. Now, I've been informed that Lorna Hinshaw, the official who was meant to be taking us through this report, is actually on annual leave. Quite unfortunate that things haven't been organised a little bit better than that, but we only just found out just fairly recently. So we can't get through the report, but I'm quite happy to take any questions that members might have, and we can pass those to the police if you've read the report and there's any questions that you think are relevant. Is there any? No. Oh, John.
Just on 4.1, It says the police continues to support speeding, fine and parking complaints. Anytime I've contacted the police about a parking complaint, they're saying it's got nothing to do with them, it's the South Lanarkshire Council that needs to deal with it. So I was actually hoping to ask Lorna about that, because again, we come back to a few where people are fully parked on pavements, and it's obstruction, but the police are saying, well, that's up to South Lanarkshire Council. So I'm just going to ask her about that.
What paragraph is that, John?
4.1,
4.1.
local and national issues. It says they're supporting the parking complaints. I don't find they are.
I mean, parking is decriminalised and it's down to the local authority to enforce that, as you're well aware. But there are some times where people are dangerously parked or obstruction, and that's a police matter. If somebody, it's quite an odd rule, and maybe the officials will correct me if I'm wrong. You can park across somebody's driveway if there's no car in the driveway. But if there is a car in the driveway and you block it, that's obstruction because they can't get out. You can't be charged for blocking them from getting in, but you can be charged for blocking them from getting out. Am I right in saying that?
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I think it's a very much of a kind of grey area, and it really depends on the circumstances that are there at the time. You know, even when someone's in the driveway and they're blocking them coming out, there's a debate over the years. Did you want out at that moment in time? If you didn't want out at that moment in time, you weren't obstructing at that moment in time. So I think, to be fair to the police, Councillor Anderson, they do support us to a degree. But obviously with the implementation of the pavement parking legislation back in December and how that's now been transferred over to us, probably the balance of where the responsibility lies is more with us now. You know, so yellow lines is us. Pavement parking was historically the police in general. Now that's over with us, but there's, as Councillor McClarkin quite rightly says, there are some areas where it's obstructive parking. They're maybe not parked on footways, they're maybe parked too close to a junction. We don't have the powers, but we bring the police in there. But as, again, Councillor McClarkin has said, police resources are somewhat challenging as well. So we'll certainly kind of pick that one up with Lorna if need be as well.
I was going to ask that if Elizabeth Ann, will you take a note of that and we'll bring that back. John, thanks very much. Is there anyone else? Okay, so I'm not going to agree to know the report, but we'll deal with it, that particular question. Next item is number 5, Scottish Fire and Rescue Service, South Lanarkshire Area Road Safety Update, pages 35 to 38 now. Is Paul Duncan available?
He has joined online.
He has joined. Paul?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, how are you doing? Yes, my name's Paul Duncan. I'm one of the new local area liaison officers for Scottish Fire and Rescue. I deal with all of Lanarkshire, but primarily with south of Lanarkshire. So here's the report that we submitted a couple of weeks ago. We attended a total of 34 RTCs in Q4 of 23-24, and that's an increase of 12 from the same reporting period last year. The incidents were spread across South Lanarkshire. The highest figure was recorded in Clydesdale, and that was 15. I had a look at that, and the majority of those incidents were on the M74 and also on A roads in a kind of triangular area between Lanark, Carluke and Larkhall. So we'll be focusing a little bit of our resources in those areas in the coming months. There were 33 non-fatal casualties. Again, these were spread across South Lanarkshire, and that's an increase of 4 from the same reporting period last year. Unfortunately, we recorded 1 fatal casualty within South Lanarkshire. That was on the 15th of March, and that's an increase of 1 from 0 the same period last year. In terms of our activities, we have been conducting road and water safety events in Lanarkshire. One was held at Drumpellier Park, which is obviously in the north. That was in March. We've conducted a 5-reach course for young people from Carluke, and we're managing to expand our 5-reach activities, which include there's a huge part of road safety campaign within that. We have funding from South Lanarkshire Council. We're running a course next week for young people, and that'll be held at Hamilton Fire Station. We've also been conducting road safety talks to local high schools. And just now we are focusing in on older drivers campaign. So we actually have a kind of scoping exercise today down at one of the garden centres in the Clyde Valley. We will be working with Police Scotland on that. We want to target all the drivers within South Lanarkshire. So places that we'll be going to will be including garden centres, bowling clubs, golf courses, places like that where we can focus on older drivers. The intention is not to stop them from driving, of course, but it's just to increase their road safety awareness. Also, we have a volunteer scheme that we run in Lanarkshire for youth members within in the community, and road safety forms a huge part of that as well. There's 12 new young people that have been taken on recently. Yeah, and we're also conducting a road and water safety event at Strathclyde Park alongside with the police, and that'll be held in June 2024 as well. And that is the report from myself. Any questions?
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much, Paul. Could I ask at 4.3, where there was one fatality, it might be earlier in the report, but what location was that? Can you tell us?
Yeah, that was, just bringing that up here, that was Drumlock Place, Straven Road, Chapelton. That was on the 15th of March.
Straven Road, just the main Straven Road between Stonehouse and Straven?
Yeah.
Are you guys aware of that? Are you?
We are aware that it's probably quite sensitive to discuss at
Right,
this
it's
meeting.
a bit early, so it's still investigated.
Yeah, it's
I
not,
was
ne-
just-
it's
okay.
not necessarily a
Take your
road
point.
accident. Thank
Thank
you.
you very much. Thank you very much. Is there any other members got any questions or comments? No, we don't. Paul, thank you very much. That was straightforward and succinct. So I'll recommend the points 1 and 2 that the recommendations be noted.
And I'll second it.
I have no other urgent business, so I'll thank you all for your attendance. Sorry? Yeah.
So thank you.
That must be the fastest one on record, eh?